So it's high time we've had this talk. In the 4 and something years that I've been studying human behavior, I've noticed that one of the most irrational things that people often do is think they suck compared to everyone around them. I'm here to explain why that's not really the case. In fact, you might be really awesome, but some flaws in your thinking are telling you you're not. So join me as we munch on another mental ration. This will sound like a really weird way of opening a video on why you underestimate yourself, but bear with me. It turns out that we sometimes overestimate ourselves. A lot. The Dunning-Kruger Effect is the tendency of most people to believe they can perform better than the average on things they're not particularly skilled at. Now, the logical thing to do is to just assume you're average at stuff you know next to nothing about, because the average person, and that includes you, is, well, average. But we don't think of ourselves as average. If you ask the average person if they're better than average drivers, 80% of them would say that they are. Never mind the fact that statistically, only 50% could ever be better than average. There are two main reasons that this happens. First, it's a matter of not knowing what we don't know. Have you ever had to argue with someone over something you're an expert or a specialist in? You will probably have noticed that a lot of people are overly confident in their views on topics they've done minimal work or study in. That is in part because they're unaware of how much information they have not come across, which grants them a false sense that they know all they need to know. If you're heavily involved in a field, you will know about all of its complexities, subfields, debates, trends, methods, and so on. Someone who isn't will mistakenly think that their field is overly simple and that their 5-minute Google search has somehow granted them chartered status. God. The second reason is that people define what skilled or competent means subjectively. For example, in a study at Arizona State University, some students believed that a smart student is someone who gets the most questions right, while others thought that it's someone who grasps the material the quickest. There were 7 more different definitions of what a smart person is, but if self-serving biases are anything to go by, then we're very likely to define cleverness or competence or literally any other positive trait in ways that suit us. If I'm really good at detecting sarcasm, I might support it as a good sign of intelligence because it means I can convince myself I am more intelligent than average. Now to get to what you're here for. A part of the Dunning-Kruger effect that tends to get ignored is that people don't just overestimate themselves at things they're not great at, they also underestimate themselves when their performance is well above average. You may have heard of something called the Impostor Syndrome. In short, it's when people feel like a fraud because they think everyone else in their field or environment is way ahead of them in one way or another. The reason that it's referred to as a syndrome is because it's based on false premises. In other words, if the people suffering from it were to quantify their performance in some objective or statistical way, they would actually be able to see that they are at least equal or even overperforming in comparison to their peers. Imposter syndrome is most common in high achievers, which is why it's so puzzling. I'll take doctoral students as an example here because they're especially prone to this phenomenon. If you put them next to undergraduate students, doctoral students are actually much more likely to experience self-doubt, although they also know way more about their field than an undergraduate would. Of course, expectations get higher and higher the higher up you go, but in cases like this, you won't measure your performance on some firm objective metric, such as how much you actually know. You'll just evaluate yourself based on unrealistic, subjective expectations. When those expectations are the anchoring point, anything you do falls short. Why do we form these expectations? My theory is because the more we're involved in something, the more we internalize and habituate it. In effect, the wow factor disappears and we no longer think what we do is a big deal. So we compensate by expecting even more. An actor that has been involved in the movie-making process, complete with a green screen, CGI, countless rehearsals and scene repetitions, is much less likely to be blown away by a screening of their own movie than is a fan. In the case of doctoral students, for example, they've been reading and researching for so long that they take their research skills and their field expertise for something common, something granted. Truth is though, the average person wouldn't even be able to do what they do. This whole thing can actually present a very weird phenomenon that I call the competence paradox. Due to their incompetence in a given subject, some people overestimate their ability as they are unaware of the existence of things they do not know, and they also tend to define competence in self-serving ways. This makes them overconfident, which can come across to other people as well. Paradoxically enough, simply by being overconfident, you can make other people perceive you as more competent than others, even when you do not necessarily show increased performance by comparison. Basically, some people may appear more competent exactly because they are incompetent. In a very recent study, researchers were able to demonstrate that having a higher social class can make people perceive themselves as better than average. This translated into overconfidence, which made them more favorable candidates in mock job interviews as a result of this illusory competence. In essence, just because someone looks like they know what they're doing doesn't mean they do. They might just be really good at coming across that way. But this is a common mistake that we make when comparing ourselves to others in things that we are actually really knowledgeable in. Recognizing this, you can begin to reason that despite what you think, most of the skills you have honed and most of the things you have studied are much more unique to you than you think. The reason you might think you're less skilled than others is because others around you may be way more vocal, despite also being less competent than you. For example, according to some rough statistics I pulled, about 6.7% of the world's population holds a university degree, of whom about 15% are economics graduates. This would make economics graduates as rare as approximately 1 in 100. I just picked economics at random, but contrary to what an economics student would think, people know much less about currency valuation and GDP trends than them. The reason they might think otherwise is because many people have strong opinions on how the economy should work, although not properly understanding how it currently works. Although you think most others might be equal or better than you in things you've practiced extensively, chances are they're really not. This of course doesn't stop at economics. If you're a psychologist, plumber, nutritionist, electrician, or whatever it is you are, you have quite a rare skill set. But here's where the real fun comes in. You're probably an expert or have significant life experiences in more than just one thing. In businesses, a common innovation tactic is to combine products that already exist to create an entirely new product that serves a different purpose. For example, you could combine a knife with a wheel and create a pizza cutter, or stick a handle on a piece of fabric and create a handbag. Yeah, this can extend to services too. Combine the properties of a search engine with foods and nutritional facts about them, and you've got yourself a nutrition app, or combine a construction service with financing and sales, and you've got a brand new sector, construction development. In the same vein, an economics graduate might also be a tennis player, and she might have a remarkable public speaking ability. Again, based on my vague estimations, someone with all of these three traits would only have a 0.00005% chance of existing, or 1 in 20,000, and that's just from 3 traits, but we have an infinite number of traits. If you start combining personality traits as well, such as openness, extroversion, and empathy, this statistic gets extremely low. So low in fact, that you'll end up in the 1 in a trillion domains. Know what that means? It means you're unique. And it means there are actually some things in this world that nobody other than you can do. Now, you've heard that you're unique a million times so far, but what I'm saying is you really are. Not as some sort of pseudo-motivational thing, you just are. Hard facts and statistics and all. If you've ever doubted your ability to do something, if you've ever found yourself in a position where you thought you're not good for anything, or if you've ever felt there's nothing unique you can offer the world, here's a harsh truth. Your brain was being a bit of a jerk. Now you might ask, what would personality or me being a tennis player do for me professionally, or how would it help me fulfill myself? Well, it gives you a way of thinking and a trajectory of experiences that nobody else would be able to replicate. The answer to how you use that to fulfill yourself is up to you. I just pointed out the fact that you literally have an infinite number of traits, some of which are more major than others. Combining a trait with another makes you progressively more and more unique. And you don't have to combine that many to get to the uniqueness point. Start by figuring out the things you're really good at, but don't restrict yourself. Look to your career, your education, your hobbies, and even your people skills. Then start thinking about what defines you. How does your personality transform your approach towards things? What traits could you combine with your skills to bring something new to the world? You can even think beyond your personality or your skills to past experiences and events you may have gone through. The really great thing about thinking in this way is that your past or even present hardships can actually turn into strengths. Being able to reflect on the impact of these experiences on your life, how they have transformed your understanding of the world and enriched your resilience, is something that can actually allow you to combine these experiences with all of your other amazing traits and skills to do other awesome things, whether that is becoming a leadership figure for others, providing unique insights into difficult situations, or otherwise. Sky's the limit. So next time you're thinking that your 5-minute Google search has transcended your cosmic understanding, or next time you're thinking you're not good enough at something you've spent years practicing or studying, remember, you've just Dunning-Krugered yourself. At the end of the day, we need more of the people who know what they're talking about to stop feeling like they don't know enough, and less of the people who know nothing to think they know all there is to know. Right now, you might be both of those people. Too vocal on things you shouldn't be, and way too hard on yourself on things you're amazing at. And if I ever hear you saying that you can't do anything exceptional, I will facepalm myself. With a chair. Statistically, you are unique. Statistically, that means there are things in this world that only you can do and nobody else. So statistically, you can do a lot of exceptional things. Just don't let your brain tell you otherwise. Remember that confidence does not necessarily equal competence, and that goes both for you, but also the people you may be comparing yourself to. While we're on the topic of doing exceptional things, why don't you do the exceptional thing of hitting that subscribe button and clicking the notification bell? Please also like this video and comment on what you'd like to see next. Thank you for sticking with me, and I'll see you next week.